Welcome to the Obase Diary, and thank you for following the Family and Relationship series. We want to say thank you for your comments, your shares, your reactions on our last episode, which was our maiden edition. In the last edition, we talked about breaking generational cycles, and we talked about identifying the issues, because definitely you cannot deal with an issue you have not been able to identify. And it was an expository section, the last edition. So, but what I'm going to be talking about today, so we're going to be talking about how do we form this circle? Where did we learn the circle from? How did we get it into our system? How did they become habits to us? And we'll also be talking about why do they persist? These are issues that have been dealt with over the time, from generations to generation, passed down from our fathers to our mothers, to the children, and also we're also passing it down to our children. Why do they persist? So this topic is going to be dealt with by my Honorable Ambrose Obe. So over to you, Honor. Thank you. Stay tuned first. Stay tuned. Take up your pen, watch, like, comment, and also share so that other persons can get educated on this information. Yeah. Over to you, Honor.
Yeah. So today we are dealing with how are generational cycles formed. That's the first question we will be addressing today. It is very simple. Generational cycles are formed by environmental factors, learned behaviors, and issues and unresolved issues within the family. For example, issues that parents did not deal with that have been transferred to the next generation, and it begins to travel. So this is how they are formed. And also, we also pick some that is part of learned behavior. We pick those ones from the roadside as we grow. We just see somebody who put up a certain behavior or read something, and we just take a liking probably to a statement. We begin to meditate over it until it starts becoming a reflective aspect of us, and until we start behaving those things. It develops to the point it becomes part of our identity.
And please, I want to come in here.
Yeah.
I remember there's this word Bishop Oyedepo used to talk about. He said habits are learned, habits are formed. There's a way he presents it. I don't know if you could actually remember the way he talks about it, and it becomes natural character that's with display.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for example, a parent's unresolved trauma can also become a cycle in the life of people. Where we are right now, there is what is called the indigenous trauma that is ongoing. It has been passed from generation to generation. So parents begin to pass these things, sometimes unknowingly, that this grief, this situation that they are in has become so strong that they begin to pass it. Sometimes parents usually used to think that I'm dealing with something just for myself, but unknowingly to them, these things are passed down to generations if they are not tackled. So it is very important for us to know how these habits are formed. As a matter of fact, these habits are as strong as a cause.
Yeah.
Because many of these habits in the long run becomes a cause. Now, if we go very deep, we have a situation whereby we begin to see some reflective things in some families. For example, we have families that usually they are known for not getting married early. That is delayed marriages. Some families are also known for delayed childbirth. You understand? So situations like this that may not be something that can be easily traced to anywhere, but you begin to see it that
a pattern.
It is a pattern in the family that it took the grandmother many years before she was able to conceive and have an issue, and probably they managed to just have one. And the mother also of the father, it took them many years as well before they could conceive and have just one. And you see that this thing becomes a pattern. Now, in that particular scenario, it may be that there is a particular condition that have not been tackled. It's just, especially in Africa, where we believe that everything is spiritual. So sometimes there is a health condition that needs to be taken care of. that have not been taken care of. Yeah. Now let us also believe that it's a spiritual matter as well. Somebody need to step out in the family. There was a day I was when we were preparing for our marriage, I was walking down the road and the Holy Ghost immediately came like a blast and was telling me, he said, look, if you have to address any matter, you must step out of it. So you cannot be in the midst of any problem trying to solve that problem. So a member of the family must step out to be able to solve that problem, and he must step out with a mindset that I have identified this problem, this pattern in my family that needs to be solved. So I just use this few as an example, because when we talk about generational cycles, some people's mind may just go for, oh no, it's just habit now, it's just habit. No, it goes beyond habit.
Let me come here. Talking about generational cycle, it could be a lifestyle pattern. Now, talking about lifestyle pattern that has been passed down from our parents, our grandparents, and all. I remember when I was consulting on the UNICEF project on adolescent reproductive health, I had core members walking up to me telling me that they started drinking as early as 4 years. Why? Because their parents were drinking. I remember one particular girl, she told me that, then I was a counselor. She told me that she started drinking at the age of, she can't even remember if it's less than 4, because when her mother finished drinking, she takes the last drops from the bottle. Then when she grew to become a teenager, she helps her mom buy, and that's how she found out that she became a drinkard and all. So these are patterns that can be formed from childhood to adulthood and passed down to your children, and the children passes down and becomes a lifestyle pattern. Yeah. It's not spiritual, it's not health-wise, it's not imposed on, but it's a lifestyle that has become a pattern.
Yeah. Like for example, there are some families that are known for tobacco. Yeah. They start with this black tobacco that our grandfathers used to take in those days, and before you know it, the children also begin to steal from the parents and begin to hide to take it, and they graduate from there and begin to take hard drugs as a result of this. And the moment it gets, because it was not managed initially, the moment it gets to that level, it is certainly something that will now be passed from generation to generation. So, because we need to identify how these things come into our lives, right? It may just be one parent who just decided probably to join a group to become big boy, big girls, and then form an habit in the process. And that habit becomes his identity, and he begins to pass it, and he begins to travel from generation to generation. Now, one thing we must know is that generational cycles can cause severe trauma.
Yeah.
And when it becomes traumatic, it creates a defensive mechanism. Or rather, it makes the victims to create a defensive mechanism, which will now bring another cycle in the process. So it can duplicate, it can multiply. Because, for example, when you know that somebody will definitely call you a certain name, you already know, even when the person have not called you, you are ready to defend or to attack or to put up a certain behavior,
defense mechanism,
so that somebody does not call you that name, because you understand. So it multiplies. So now you have one cycle, a pattern that is creating others, and when it starts multiplying like this, it becomes worse. You understand? So they are negative. In all these ones we are actually discussing today, majorly are negative traits that families, have to deal with. One is poverty. Some families are synonymous to poverty. Even
when wealth comes, the fact that they can't even pull out.
They can't pull out. They can't manage it. So you see that
even if they are in wealth, they have so much money, but because of it's a lifestyle, it's a circle, they still live in that poverty mentality.
That poverty mindset. Because see, a poverty that have not left your mind can never leave you. It has to leave your mind first. Now, how did this even happen? Because we say wealth, yes. How does this kind of wealth in the midst of poverty comes? For example, the family is known for poverty, and one member of the family stumble into wealth without knowing why and how. And instead of that person leveraging on this opportunity to leverage his family, he begins to use it as an oppressive tool.
A weapon.
He begins to use it as a stool of kingship so that other members of the family worships him. And this also creates another circle, because others, their only wish or prayer of coming out of this thing is to also get well, so that they can get back to somebody or oppress others.
Slave and master
So
mindset.
by this mindset, poverty begins to multiply itself in the family. So you see that. And now, because we're talking about how are these things formed, most family who are poor, beginning from the days of our ancestors, were poor because they were lazy. That's the first root of poverty. Now, this present generation, now, until they deal with that root, they will never come out of it. Another factor that also creates poverty in the family is lack of creativity. Now, until they deal with this thing, they will not come out of it. Another factor is inability to manage their meager resources, because wealth is created from resources that are well managed. It doesn't have to be much, but a little. How well did you manage it? Now, but first of all, the family have to identify that we have this problem and have to try to get to the root of this problem and then solve them before they can come out of this situation. So there are so many patterns in the family. All you need to do is to sit down and ask yourself, what is my own pattern? And what do I need to deal with? You see some family, for example, they don't have a graduate. Yeah. No education in the family. And they will tell you that, well, when this person attempted one spiritual thing happened, one thing happened, no help, blah, blah, blah. There are always stories around. Somebody needs to step out to create a new narrative for the family.
Talk about trauma. How trauma can be a generational cycle problems to us. So I'm going to talk about in the case of emotional abuse, broken marriages, domestic violence, and all that in a relationship. Growing up, personally, I grew up from a close-knitted and loving family. Like I tell people, for almost 20 years, my parents stayed together before my dad passed on. I never saw them quarrel, exchange words, talk more of fighting or raising their voices. So when I tell people that, I can't even imagine myself in an abusive relationship. Now, I couldn't even stand it. At a point, I was in a relationship where I was seeing some form of abuse, as in, it was non-verbal abuse, but I couldn't stand it because I've not been there, I've not experienced it. Neither do I want to have a family that will start managing how to manage domestic violence, how to manage abuse and all that. And I walked away. So now, in a family whereby, like in an African setting, a woman is being abused, she's going through trauma. Not that the trauma doesn't end with her, it also transfers to the children. Yeah. If it's for a lady, the girl child sees it as, that is the way marriage is. That is the way marriage is. Why for the boy, like what my husband said yesterday, the boy sees it as a weapon to make the woman submissive in his own way. Now, this particular young girl growing in such a dysfunctional family thinks that is the normalcy of marriage. She goes into marriage with such a mindset that even if she sees the red flag of abuse, she sees it as a normal thing. After all, you know, reach my papa one. They see it as a normal way of life, you understand? And the child goes into a dysfunction, she builds a dysfunctional home, and she has a child also. The child sees it as a normal thing. Like, I remember back then in school, there was this young girl that was staying, well, she was actually my next door neighbor. Every time she was cohabiting with her boyfriend, every time you hear the loud music of that room, it's a fight. At the point, I was still a very young girl that I didn't even know what was happening. But most time when they fight, people will come out. And again, the next minute, one outsiders come to rescue the girl. The next minute, the girl goes back and it's like nothing happened. She sees it as a normal way of life. I remember when she was talking, she said if her boyfriend doesn't beat her, she feels the guy doesn't love her. That is her own way of dealing with trauma. You can find out that trauma when it comes to relationship has transferred from wherever she's coming from and goes to the child. The child sees, so at the end of the day, we find out it's a circle. So why does it persist? Because we allow these things to persist.
Why does generational cycles or patterns persist? First of all, it persists because familiarity, of course, breeds persistence.
Yeah.
familiarity breeds, in fact, repetition. You get too familiar with the situation, you accept the situation, it breeds repetition. You know, I was in a relationship many years back. As a matter of fact, I was very lucky because I saw this girl, I liked her, and I didn't want to tell her, oh, I love you. So I approached her with the mindset of, I want us to be friends, because I wanted to really get to know her first before I can start providing love to her. And I discovered that this girl, she can argue for Africa. You see a black laptop, for example, she will say this laptop is pure white, and she can hold the argument until she wins. And some of that pocket of behaviors, because I was very close, because I was actually interested in her. So I was just noting those things. So at a point I started discussing with her that, okay, do you know that you can lose valuable people in your life based on certain behaviors? She used one statement: if you don't love me for who I am, to hell with you. So this is somebody who have built a mindset, an identity for herself. Whatever you do, she is not going to stop her, because she has made up her mind that it is you now who need to bend to accept her, because she has accepted that identity, and this is who I am. So that is one reason why generational patterns persist. Another reason it persists is ignorance. When these things are happening and you are ignorant of them, certain things happen that sometimes we behave in ways that if you don't have people who are sincere to point to you that you are doing these things, you may not understand that you are doing them. You may not really know the enormity of what you are doing. Like many years back, there was a particular time I was so stressed, and I went somewhere, I enjoyed the journey, I came back. When I got home, my family summoned me for a meeting, and we're like, somebody, one of my brothers passed me by, I didn't know, and so he said he saw me talking to myself as I was walking. I was like, no, I never did that. So you did. And as God will have it, they were two. They said they wanted to stop and pick me, but when they saw me talking to myself, they're like, whatever he's talking to, let him just continue. And they left me behind. And I was very young, and I was like, what problem am I actually battling that could make me to start talking to myself? That issue was addressed, and I became very conscious on how I behave when. So now, assuming somebody didn't tell me, I would have built that identity. And probably today now, wherever I'm going, I'll be gesticulating, talking to myself. So ignorance is another thing that actually breeds persistence of generational
From what
patterns.
you just said now, unconsciously, when we replicate patterns, we replicate experience, it becomes part of us. So intentionally, you're already forming these things. You're already used to experiences, and they become part of you. So that's why these patterns actually persist.
So finally, another reason these things persist is lack of awareness.
Yeah.
Because sometimes some people will say, well, there's nothing I can do, because they are not informed about their situation. They don't have any resources that actually point them to the right direction or solution. So lack of awareness is one of the reasons why these things. So you need to have sincere people around you that point these things to you, so that if you are ignorant of them, they let you know that, hey, this thing is going on in your life. That is when the thing is being built afresh. Then two, you need to first of all, instead of accepting it, you need to identify that it is a problem that needs to be dealt with. And thirdly, don't be ignorant of it. Don't just turn your face away to the things happening around your life. You need to ask yourself questions and ask others for sincere feedback. And that brings awareness, because somebody may say, yes, actually you are doing this thing, but I don't know how you react. That is why I've not told you. Now that you know, what will you do? You have to start researching. You have to start speaking about it. You have to also look to your family to see if these patterns are there, or if it's you that is just picking them up. If it's you that is picking them up, it is a bit easier than when it's already a family lifestyle. But even as such, you can step aside and look for solution for these things. So in our next video, we'll be talking about how to break these causes. But we deemed it fit, first of all, to let us know how these things are formed and why they persist in our lives. which is very important, because you cannot solve a problem you are not even aware of first, and you cannot solve a problem you don't even know its root. That's why there's an African parable that says that when a child does not know what kills his father, that same thing will kill him. So it's very, very important that you identify the patterns of certain behaviors in your life. For example, when you have people, when you are always attracting good people who can give you favor or who can help you, and suddenly you lose them, and this thing has become a pattern, you must ask yourself,
what am I doing?
What am I doing wrong? What is happening in my life? It could be that you treat your helpers as your friends. You carry your shoulder for your helpers, and your helpers were like, okay, this one is even bigger than us. He's the one that is going to help us. It could be the way you behave around your helpers makes your helpers to dump you or to walk away from your life. So you need to ask questions, identify your problems, and accept that you have a problem, and go out to sort information about that problem and be willing to overcome them.
So thank you. You've rounded up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think we've learned one or two. Even as we discussed, I also learned from the discussion. So just like you commented in the first edition, so go back again after watching. Just drop your comments, like and share. And if you're watching from our YouTube channel, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also recommend other people to come watch the video. So thank you, and stay tuned to the next edition where we shall be talking about breaking this generational cycle. I think that should be the final section on this topic.
I don't think so, but that's the next.
That's the next there. So thank you very much, and stay tuned on this channel. Stay blessed.